Hello and welcome to the FinTech session. This is another engagement and insightful driven session where we are going to explore how FinTech and the ecosystem is tapping the millennial opportunity. We have with us today Kavitha Subramanian, co-founder at Upstox, Ranjith Boyanapalli, head of FinTech and payments group at Flipkart, Vinay Bagri, co-founder at Niyo, and Mr. Vishal Anand Kanvaty, the chief of innovation at NPCI. A very warm welcome to all of you. Fintechs have been for a long time, tapping the opportunity of the millennial space, considering it's a huge segment. And across financial services, it is a very much underpenetrated or to some extent, unpenetrated segment. Kavitha, I would like to start with you. Given how, in the last 1 year, not only digital brokerages, but all brokerages have seen a good amount of demand when it comes to retail trading in that sense. How has the journey been for you in terms of targeting the millennial space and what are the demands and how do you fulfill those demands?
So firstly, thanks very much for having me on this panel. So I just want to say that, if you look at the last 10 years in terms of equity participation in the country from, let's say, 2005 to 2015, 16, equity participation is fairly stagnant. But from 16 onwards, equity participation has practically doubled. And a big driver of that was the Aadhaar e-sign revolution that's just come about, right? And what that's helped make happen in the industry is not only has equity participation doubled, but the story has become a Bharat story. So even at Upstox, right, a full 85% of our customer base now comes from a tier 2, tier 3 town. And a good 80% plus of our customers are the young millennials of India, right? And what is very interesting is A, it's a matter of giving access, but B, our mission at Upstox is, how do you take something like financial management, which is something that every one of us should do, but how do you make it relevant, engaging, interesting, and accessible to a young millennial, right? And to give a very simple sort of an example, what we're trying to bring to financial services is literally what IPL is doing to cricket. In a way, what does IPL do, right? You take cricket, which is a religion in the country, right? Yeah. It has its own set of ethics, right? If you nick the ball and even if the umpire says you're not, or you'll still walk, right? But what did IPL do? We just took this test matches of 5 days or a 50-over game and said, forget that. Let's make the format very refreshing and relevant to a young India, right? We added color, we added forms, and suddenly cricket is as relevant today as it was so many years ago. And that's sort of what we're trying to do here at Upstox, saying, look, financial services is very, very important, very relevant. But how do you make the content format, the app, the way we deliver it, engaging, interesting for a young millennial? Right? So that's been our focus. That's been our drive. We're looking at saying every Indian, no matter where you are in India, and no matter what your financial background is and what your financial literacy levels are, you should be able to manage your personal wealth as optimally as possible. And I think the interesting caveat here is financial literacy is something that, if I were to ask this panel here as well, how many of you are optimally managing your wealth? And, the answer could be very few of us actually would really say, yes, I'm doing very well in terms of managing my wealth, right? India is superb as a country in terms of savings, but we're not that good at investing. And this cuts across, intelligentsia. It's not about your level of education. It's not about your level of assets or wealth even, an IT professional, some of the best CEOs and entrepreneurs in the country, honestly, right down to people of different socioeconomic backgrounds, like your drivers or cooks or maids. Many of us are not financially literate enough. So that's the goal at Upstox. How do you take every Indian, no matter what your financial literacy levels, no matter what your asset levels, no matter where you are in India, how do we make this whole journey of managing your personal wealth optimally a great, engaging, and a smooth journey? And we do that through a variety of ways in terms of a great product that's engaging for the customer. Our marketing machinery makes sure to reach out to a tier 2, tier 3 Indian. And of course, like I said, the content, the education, the awareness, each of these is a very significant pillar in making this happen.
Okay, that's an interesting point on how you're using IPL as an example and taking it up ahead with how you're shaping up the content as well. When it comes now, moving on to Vishal's, like NPCI has been a great example of how scaling up happens. How at NPCI do you all look at, while there is no direct segment as you would tap a millennial consumer, but how does the NPCI approach this particular segment with respect to how the products are being shaped up?
Thanks, Ishan. I think, yeah, you're right. I think NPCI is sort of a B2B organization. We really don't directly touch the customers, except me. But I think UPI has taught us a big lesson that you cannot ignore your customers, and especially the digitally savvy millennial customers, right? And we have seen the success of UPI, and I think the biggest attribute of that is because of the millennial customers, and I think we are able to meet and add value to what they have been doing, right? I think if you look at the millennials, and if I go back 20 years back, I think some of the banks coined this term, get them young and they're there for the lifetime, right? And that started with credit cards, right? And especially what we are seeing today with the millennials, it's not just them, but I think they are a huge influencer in the whole family, and I think they also carry this throughout their life, right? So it's very important. Even though we are not directly consumer interfacing, I think it's very important to get the millennial customers because it will drive the habits and drive these patterns for a long time, right? So when we actually look at any of our payment products, we do analyze what is the millennial expecting, and some of our features are largely driven by what the segment is looking at, and if we can actually meet their aspirations and needs. I think one of the key themes that I want to say here is, I think, as a famous saying, right, I think the customers don't know what really they need. I think we need to have that ability to catch up the opportunity when it comes, and I think that's where at NPCI we are more looking at a design-led approach here, as well as building platforms for various initiatives, right? So it's not just that you're just meeting one of the requirements, and we all know we can coin the term millennials, but India, it's a huge segment, right? I mean, from very rich to the segment of the population which needs a different way in which we approach things. So I definitely we look at more of design-led as well as more of a platform approach here, not typically looking at a product, meeting each of the segments, but more of a platform where the customization can happen as per the use case that can arise. So that's how we have been approaching.
Okay, that's interesting how UPI has evolved and how different players are integrating UPI on the platform. Quite a remarkable study on that front. Moving on to Ranjith, Flipkart definitely, scaling is quite evident how Flipkart, on how the whole e-commerce segment has been scaling up. But on the fintech front, we have seen how payments, in terms of checkout financing, where you all have added buy now, pay later options. Then you would also add insurance to some particular products that are being sold on e-commerce portal. Just from a e-commerce perspective at Flipkart, how do you view the overall piece of e-commerce and fintech in tandem?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And once again, thanks for having me on this panel. It's an absolute pleasure. Flipkart, as you know, right, has been one of the initial consumer internet tech companies in the country, and there's a fair bit of learning that we have done on consumer thinking, building the right consumer products, and at scale, right, especially during Big Billion Day, etc. There are a lot of those systems that also get tested for scale significantly.
Yes.
Always done that. So the thought process for Flipkart is to, and today the millennials that we talk about here. While, like Vishal said, while India is made up of multiple Indias within, and there are too many parts too, but millennials definitely are probably right at the top of that list in terms of for pure reasons of, be it their digital literacy, be it their economic standing in the country, and so on and so forth. So, and they probably drive 70% of India's GDP. So what I'm trying to say is that's definitely a cohort that can make or break opportunities and businesses. So for us, we already have them as loyalists on our commerce business. So I think that's a very interesting place to be in. And the second thing, India, we totally believe is both underserved from a credit standpoint and also underprotected from an insurance standpoint, right? So, and being a marketplace who connects consumers and sellers, right? I think access to credit has always been a driver for greater commerce growth, right? Be it both on the consumption side and of course on the supply side. So we want to be the destination for financial services products in India, be the marketplace. for financial products as well, right? And we have been taking steps towards it. We have been working with a lot of partners. For example, NPCI is also one of partners. I believe what UPI did in the country, probably I'll call it the innovation of the decade, right? What UPI did for payments from a standpoint, right? So I think we are working with other partners and finding similar opportunities on the credit side of things, on the insurance side of things, because we have a use case that's right in the backyard. So there's a consumer who's coming here and trying to purchase a mobile phone, a large appliance, and so on, and having access to credit on his checkout is something that's something a huge focus for us. Affordability is a very strong theme that we continue pursuing. Similarly, not just credit, but also say from an insurance standpoint, protecting the Flipkart customer and his assets, his purchases on Flipkart. Again, every checkout is an opportunity for us to help protect his purchase. So I think both of them are very key areas for us to invest.
Okay, that's quite interesting in terms of watching out how some of these partnerships will scale up and how it will pan out. Moving on to Vinay, your journey has been very millennial focused in that sense from where you have begun, and in terms of different products and services, right from I remember Forex to now a proper neo-banking proposition. You know the sector very well, in the customer segment very well. How has your experience been in targeting this segment, and what it takes to scale up in this particular segment?
Yeah, thanks, Ishan, for having me over and on this panel. And first, let me congratulate Kavitha for amazing ads during IPL. Really loved those. clearly, indicated which segments you're going after, and very, very nice messaging around it. So congrats to.
Thank you so much. You're very kind.
Yeah. So our journey on millennials has been kind of interlinked very tightly with how the banking system has evolved. So we started in 2016 after demonetization, when the other millennials, the Bharat millennials, were in search of a bank account, because suddenly cash could no longer be disbursed to the blue-collared employees. And they were our first customers, and we created a mobile banking app built on a prepaid platform with support of NPCI to offer a really product which added value to their lives. It had around 10, 11 languages. It was, if you're illiterate also, the product would work. The card was RuPay to ensure that, the major use case of withdrawing money from ATM was taken care of. So it continues to be our flagship product, very successful product for that millennial. Then we launched a product from a travel perspective for other set of millennials, very much like you, Ishan, who like to travel abroad. And we launched that product, started it off in actually AMS Lucknow. Our first customer was there, and then it kind of caught fire, and almost all IM students today, when they travel on their exchange programs, these are slightly they travel on our product. And then it became very successful again in millennial segments who want to travel abroad, and they didn't want this headache of having to load various currencies to look what is working, which currency was. It's extremely simple. You load INR, go anywhere in the world, and operate at zero forex markup. So product was extremely doing very well. And then of course travel nobody can travel anymore thanks to COVID. And then we pivoted to the full-fledged, and thankfully by the time banking systems are also evolved, if 2016 I'd walked into a bank and told them that I want to integrate in your core banking, I'm sure myself being a banker, I would have been kicked out the same minute. But the things have changed dramatically since then. And now we have integrated in core banking of 3 banks. Could not have imagined this like 4 or 5 years ago. So now the latest product is the full, what is in the Western world called as Niyo bank. We would like to call ourselves like a fintech integrating with banks, where banks provide the backend infrastructure.
Yes.
And we built a beautiful mobile interface on top of it. So again, targeted naturally the most digital savvy customers, the customers who also have the money, because a bank account without deposits is useless. So also have the money to park there, who understand and who are agile to move between a 3-4% account to a 7% interest account. And product comes with a wealth product. You can buy mutual funds, stocks, all that. So I think naturally for us, this segment was the most interesting.
Okay, that's quite interesting, and I would pick up on the point of the integration, which has become very important in that sense. Now, not a single entity can individually scale up on individually to target this segment at a huge scale. So Vishal sir would want to understand from you. You partner on both the bank side as well as the fintech side as well. How has the integration evolved? What are the nitty-gritties when it comes to ensuring that the systems are up and running, the products and services are completely fine, and the feedback and the engagement mechanism is constantly on. So how has the integration journey evolved from, let's say, earlier 5 years to now, and specifically in the last 1 year?
Yeah, I think as Vinay highlighted, I think it is, I think I would say drastically changed over the last 4 to 5 years, right? I think it wasn't a conversation starter, maybe 4 or 5 years back, where banks would never have opened up, to integration to their core systems. Right? I think it has changed completely in the last 4 to 5 years, and I think now banks are more open, at least on the transaction banking, on the payments part. I think they've opened up the APIs which are available to almost any startup now. And the integration can happen pretty smoothly after that. Once the business and the technology are convinced on the propositions. So from a completely closed loop sort of mentality, now we have, I would say, the invitations coming to most of the startups on the API, as well as I think it's now a competition between banks, to get which are the fintechs which are worthy to integrate and sort of compete to get them on board. So I think they're also looking at reliability and ensuring the systems are up and running, and there is SLA availability that's there. Uh, I think the first part is the API integrations, which is completely eased. Uh, I think the challenges that I see is mostly from a scalability perspective, because uh, at least from a UPI example, I can talk. It has taken us a lot of efforts to sort of make all the parties, to be aware of what are the challenges in terms of uh, you know ensuring the scalability, and I think a lot of banks have never expected the scale to happen at this magnitude. I think they were looking at a more of an organic growth to happen, while the fintechs were I think more flexible and were able to meet the demands. I think the technology landscape has changed drastically in the 4 to 5 years, like in the cloud and open APIs have really made it quite simple. Whereas the banks still have those challenges from a, I would say, the monolithic architecture, and you know the infrastructure is still continues a problem. I think it is now changing for the good. A lot of banks have sort of started working on it, and it might be a while before we can say that we have won the battle there. I think in the last 1 year, I think most of the banks are now looking towards cloud, towards ensuring at least some of this, integration points can be outside the core environment, and they can work on the cloud to integrate with most of the fintechs. So that's the significant change that I've seen.
Okay. Kavitha, how has it been for you in terms of tie-up with asset management companies and similar investment companies and financial institutions, right from shaping up the product to constant engagement, feedback from user base, the overall financial integration piece, how has it evolved?
So when it comes to the broking space particularly and the trading space particularly, banks are actually competitors to us, and we have a lot of respect for the large banks in the country, of course. Phenomenal performance across multi-decades, right? That said, in recent years, it's players like us have actually leapfrogged the banks in terms of performance, right? So today, Upstox has more customers than the large banks, be it an HDFC, ICICI, or Kotak, etc. So on one side, of course, that in the broking trading industry itself is a direct competition, but similarly, what we're looking at is a sense of co-opetition, right? So there are certain banks which don't have a broking of their own. So for example, we have a deep tech integration with IndusInd Bank. right? And what it does is it sort of brings to the customer the best of the both worlds, right? So, for example, they have access to a discount broking platform where you are no longer paying the paisa brokerage. You're actually paying either free delivery trades or you're just paying a flat 20 rupee fee for a trade, right? That plus the sort of the millennial product centricity on the one hand, and on the other, we bring to bear the sort of the banking infrastructure that our banking partners bring to the table. So suddenly now customers can get the best of these, I would say, are the sort of the best of both sides, right? The stability, the trust that comes with the banking side, but also married to what we bring best to the table. And this offering therefore allows customers to trade on Upstox without actually moving your money out of your bank account. So you also earn interest on your balances with Upstox. This is a feature that only Upstox offers. And we just believe that there are so much more, therefore, that one can go to market with. When you have the customer at the front and center, and you don't worry about what it takes to give them what they want, I feel like there's so much potential out there to work with banks, with large financial services players, and just put out innovation that nobody would have done on their own.
Okay. That's interesting. The point of deep tech integration with banks who don't have their own security subsidy in that sense. Moving on to Ranjith, how has the integration with financial institutions, been with Flipkart, considering credit, payments, now insurance has also been evolving. What are some of the key learnings over there in terms of integration and scaling up from there?
So like you said, I'll probably answer the question across all three parts of payments, credit, and insurance. Payments, the reason I say payments also specifically separate is digitization is also something that's very passionate for Flipkart, and we pursue it significantly. And which means a customer should be able to pay through whatever form of digital instrument that he wishes to. So acceptance experience becomes very, very critical, especially during times of Big Billion Day, when we have this really nice deals with and opens at about 12 or 1 and so on. So for the kind of surge that we see. So the first few years, we started working very closely with the banks in terms of to ensure that, the infrastructure stays strong, to look at the kind of TPS that you're hitting, right? I mean, you're talking about 1,200, 1,500 kind of a transaction per second. So then what becomes most important is you joining hands with, of course, every bank, while is giving enough and more importance to scalability, reliability at this point in time, but definitely someone who has the ability to see and handle scale in a seamless manner becomes very, very important. The good news is we see every bank in India going down that path in a very strong fashion. I think people realize that digital experience is not an add-on to a physical experience, but probably digital experiences will replace physical experience in a lot of things. So the focus is significant on the payment side. Now, again, on credit and insurance, right? This goes back to also how Vinay was talking about neobanks and so on. I do believe there's two ways the consumer internet tech being applied to legacy systems is changing. So one is obviously value extraction. The core financial product kind of could remain the same, but the way the financial product is being accessed and enjoyed, say then through this product life cycle changes. So which means you get use insights for far sharper cushioning. So your acquisition costs go down for the consumer. The onboarding is digital, so he gets to open his account faster and so on and so forth. So you're doing a whole lot of workflow digitization and so on. And here, very strong consumer internet product thinking is very critical. So the DNA match is very important. And the second part is the innovation of the core financial product itself, right? So for example, buy now, pay later, my form and shape is a different product. Similarly, say Flipkart Smart Upgrade is a new product that we launched. So a consumer who comes to buy, he doesn't need to pay 100% upfront. He can just pay 70% and actually walk away with the product, right? So I think insights, consumer internet tech, all of this will play a significant role. So in the choice of partners, like you said, I think this tech-first DNA is going to become very critical. And we see that happening all through. I think it's a matter of time before everyone becomes tech-first DNA, tech-first thinking, and keeping the customer experience at the center. It's no more about handling scale and no more about ensuring reliability. It's about crafting delightful and innovative customer experiences. So that's how we primarily choose our partners, and that's how it's been working for us.
Okay. That's quite an interesting learning on tech first deal. Vinay, moving on to specifically, like while you did mention 5 years back it would have been difficult for you to integrate with a bank. Now you have said you have integrated with 3 banks, and the journey is just beginning. So how is it panning out in terms of making users aware that Niyo banking as a proposition? And I have seen your ads, while I scroll my Instagram feed, I have the ad of Niyo coming in, just open a bank account with Equita Small Finance Bank, as in the whole layout is there. Uh, in terms of awareness and content-led engagement, what are the learnings and experience in that particular place? Like, what does it take to build that constant engagement with this particular segment?
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of engagement with millennials, it is very important to have more than one platform. That's what at least our experience has been. So in the product which we did earlier, we did not have a community platform, so to say. And what we are realizing now is that a community platform where all of us are there, I mean, my entire product team, service team, so it just leads to so much more engagement. And half the things we are introducing now in the latest NewX product have actually been ideas we've got on the community platform from millennials who are using the product. So we thought, engaging them in decision making is one really good way for engagement.
Vishal, at NPCI, while like again, there's no direct product proposition as such, but if one area I would look out at is something which is frauds around the payment space. How is the messaging and the content led awareness being shaped up there? Like within the realm of innovation, how do you overall see that frauds happen at the less space, and how do you rightly engage with the target customer base?
So I think let me start with an example, right? I think we have seen many calamities happening, and the latest one is quite a huge one. But we always had calamities, and always all of us sort of wants to do something, at that point, So, but I think today, if you actually look at people, and previously we used to just donate some money, PM relief fund, whatever, right? So. We just initially we used to send money using IMPS account number, and then UPI came. But if you actually look at today, I think and that's where I see a lot of this fintechs have taken that share. I think the experience today is I don't want to just donate money. I want to be part of something. I want to be part of, let's say, if the crisis is for oxygen, people want to be really associated with that, saying I want to donate cylinder, not the money, right? So this experience is something that's actually changing the way people actually look at the whole thing. While end of the day it's a money that is going from my bank account, I think the expectation is sort of very, very different. And that's where I would obviously, when we actually look at any of this, while we are not directly associated on the experience front, I think some of these design elements that we put in building some of the platforms, right? On how do I convert the money into something that is that the end user can associate with himself is something where we sort of move away from just the product part of it to the overall platform where I can keep on adding these flexibilities and giving the flexibilities to the fintechs, to the banks to work with us. And that's where I think we really look into how the customer experience and the tech flexibility, or we cannot keep on doing these changes every time, right? So this has to be supported by the overall technology that we are adopting, and whether it's API or whether it's a consumer apps that are there, that close integrations and the changes that are required to be done at that level needs to be something that you need to thought through much ahead and anticipate those changes. And I think that's where we sort of work internally, where we try to anticipate what could be those dynamic changes that we might be required, and sort of support that as a platform from our end, whether it's UPI or any of the payment systems. We sort of look at that. I mean, simple example could be EMI, right? Initially, when I have to support EMI, it's very easy for a single bank to do it. But if there are multiple banks involved, how do I pass on those messages, and tell them that, okay, this is this is not this is the interest rate for 6 months, this is the interest rate for 3 months. So a lot of those to and fro needs to happen. And that's where I think that we need to think through all this experience. What is that the bank would need? What would be the fintech would be needing? And ultimately, what is that customer is looking at, and then we have the ability to pass on the information end to end to everyone in the ecosystem. So that's how we think through, anticipate the changes and give the flexibility to everyone in the ecosystem.
Thank you for that particular insight on how design-led thinking is shaping up that action. Kavitha, how has it been for you? Initially, you mentioned that a lot of content-led engagement is happening in terms of bringing them on board, then user awareness around how do you manage your financial services. How has your experience been? What are the significant changes that you have seen post these set of activities?
So see, for us, it's all about customer obsession, right? So for example, there is a lot of research and understanding of how customers trade, how customers invest that goes behind building the app. So we put in more than 100 hours of customer interviews, for example, in the recent last few months, in-depth interviewing of each customer over 2-3 hours, not necessarily just listening to what they're saying, but actually watching how they interact with the app, right? And making sure that every step of friction along the way is taken away, and making sure that the experience for that customer is seamless, right? So customer obsession, being completely focused on saying what is in the best interest of the customer, is really at the heart for us of customer engagement. And for an app like ours, people log in every single day, right?
Yes.
Because you're placing trades, and some of them are intraday traders. So of course, we have F&O traders and we have some of the delivery traders, but people log in every single day, many of them to trade, but some of them, even if you're not trading, you're likely to log in just to check, how's the market doing, right? So for an app like ours, making sure that engagement journey is smooth is very, very important, right? So from the get-go, this is designed completely with the customer interest in mind. And it's not just the app experience itself, the entire product experience is crafted towards that. Now, clearly, there's no one size fit all. There are so many diverse customer segments for us, just within the product suite as well. But even within that, right, there's a beginner, for example, who's onboarded. And, I'm very happy to say that at Upstox, 60% of our new customers are actually first-time traders and investors, and they're choosing to enter the market through Upstox, right? How do we make sure that someone like that, who's just starting out in their journey, is equipped with the right content, the right educational material to help them through the journey, all the way to someone who's a pro trader who knows what to do, and how do you make it super easy, super seamless, and super quick for them to actually place that trade in and out, and without losing the pricing that they anticipate to get. So it is about focusing on each of the different types of customers a little obsessively, and making sure that whatever the background of the customer, whatever the level of skill set of the customer, they have a journey that is seamless for them. So I think that is at the heart really of the engagement, and certainly content is a huge driver there.
Thank you so much. Ranjith, how has it been for you? Like you did mention that while integrating with any financial institution, it's all about tech first DNA. Taking it ahead from integration, how do you all ensure that the services and the delivery of products and services is seamless, where the customer is constantly being engaged in that sense?
Yeah, good question, Ishan. I think like even how Kavitha said, it's very specific to. There are some things that are common across irrespective of what product that you're dealing in. Yes. And then, of course, there's going to be something that are very specific to the nature of your product. For us, say contextual settings, right? I think with the advent of technology, one thing that's also helping, right, with the entire effort of data sciences that we're able to put across various customer consenting data, I think is our ability to craft better experiences for that customer, right? So, and context also from a Flipkart standpoint, again, like I said earlier, our ability to target a specific person who's looking for a high-end, let's assume, mobile phone or a refrigerator, right? At that particular point of time might be a great time to actually say, hey, you know what, you can actually have access to this, affordable EMI kind of an option, and you're eligible for these 3 providers or so on and so forth. Would you want to upsell, right? And the sense that there's a way of, so for the customer, hey, now that he has affordability, his choice of products may start being different, right? So, but that's all about context of him taking a particular path and we being there at that point in time to serve him rightly. So it's worked out for us, and especially with millennials, right, which is the topic that you've been talking about today. I think what the digital, or rather financial literacy was about 5-6 years ago versus today, I think there's been a sea shift, right? So with access to information across everyone and all of us doing our job in terms of also educating across various, I think the awareness is significantly higher today, and which is why you see adoption of digital-only processes. You see huge uptakes in different products, including payments, including equity, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think this is a part of the process. I don't think we have a choice about it. It's a part of process of trying to stay contextual and be very relevant to the customer.
That's quite an interesting remark. Vishal, I would want to understand from your perspective, you mentioned about the design-led thinking when it comes to innovation at NPCI. What are some of the key trends or innovation in the insight that you see or the NPCI is currently working upon?
Yeah, I think some of the key trends, obviously, the tech advantages, deep tech, I would say, not just technology, but deep technology advantages is very, very important. And we are trying to understand the customer insights better with bringing in a lot of models around AI, ML, working on DLT, blockchain technologies, as well as, the open API. I think that's where I see the whole industry heading, at least from the payments perspective. I think the open banking and open API stack is going to play a huge role. And with I think that should cut down a lot of the integrations efforts, between the fintechs and the banks, and give a better propositions to the customer. So I think I would say building a robust tech platform with not. I think the platform is the key word here, which can meet a lot of requirements, depending on what the customer is expecting, is the key where you can actually give these features at a very low time frame and a low cost to the customers. I think those are the key trends that I'm seeing.
Vinay, how about you? Like at Niyo, how do you see the overall segment, evolving going ahead? Where definitely, cross integration and cross tie-ups, where let's say you would also have to tie up with Upstox going ahead in some time, and assuming that India gets a full digital bank license opportunity going ahead. So, just how do you see the overall, this space evolving in terms of how fintechs are targeting the millennial customer base, and how specifically even you, how's the product and service roadmap for you as well?
Yeah, like you rightly said, see, it is very difficult for everybody to do everything really well. Partnership becomes important. And for example, in case of our wealth product, when we launched our mutual funds, we were lucky to have a partnership with Goldwise, a very well-developed product. Just to launch a bank account, as I mentioned, banks are very critical to have partnerships. Stocks, as luck would have it. In fact, Ravi and I had a long chat on how to go about it, and what can be the benefit for us, because Upstox is a fantastic product, very, very well built. So we would be delighted to offer something like that to our customers, because what will eventually happen is that these customers, millennials, they will become more and more demanding with every passing day. Anyway, by nature they are demanding, and they are, as the focus group would have explained, people they're happy to make an effort to change. Unlike earlier, when you open a bank account, you would never change it. But with millennials, and if you don't offer them what they want, they would be willing to make the effort to change the bank account or change whatever product they're using. So it's really important for everybody who is dealing with millennials to be on top of the game. And when you do that, it is impossible to be on top of the game for all the products. So to ensure that you give the best experience to the user for the product you want to give, you can ensure that. But if you want to give best experience to the product for multiple products which a user is using, it has to be through partnerships. I really don't see anybody doing everything on their own.
Taking up the same question, Kavitha, how do you see the space evolving in terms of on the brokerage and the wealth management side? in terms of targeting millennial customer base?
Yeah, so firstly, I think fundamentally, even more than innovations, and innovations are absolutely important, but I think they need to stand on a bedrock of values. And I think one of the most important things for us at Upstox is that fundamentally we will only do whatever is in the best interest of the customer, right? For example, it's a common practice to give tips to customers. We would not do that. Upstox would never go to a customer and say, why don't you buy this or buy that? Because frankly, if we were so good at calling stocks, we should be doing something else. And we have Mr. Ratan Tata as an investor on our board. We take that honor very, very seriously. So if you know that old test which said, whenever you do something, be sure that you're okay having it on the front page of the leading newspaper the next day. Our test internally is, can you look Mr. Tata in the eye and tell him you're doing this? Right? I think that's a much higher standard, to be honest. So that value system actually is really, really important to us. Now, riding on that value system, then comes a slew of innovations which says, how do you make sure that you are constantly giving a better and more innovative experience to this customer, right? And so, for example, it can be any number of features that we release, and we call it moonshots internally. So our goal internally is every quarter we want to release something that the industry has never seen. Because what is the point otherwise, if you're not doing innovative stuff? So we take innovations very, very seriously, but it's vital for us that they always stand on the bedrock of values saying, are you doing whatever is in the best interest of the customer first? And I think innovation, not for just the sake of the innovation not for the sake of just promoting business, but innovation for the sake of promoting customer experience. I think it's a very exciting place to be, and hopefully we continue to lead in this space on that front, and that's where we would like to stay.
That's really interesting to note how on every quarter you would be looking up for an release in that sense. Ranjith, how has it been for you? Like, how do you see the millennial opportunity and the fintech piece of Flipkart in the coming times ahead? Considering a lot of digital proliferation has already happened, and the e-commerce is surely going to look at another rise of demand coming in demand in the coming times. What are your thoughts on this part?
Ishan, I think there are enough and more industry reports, and a lot of them say the new age fintechs, right? At least the kind of disruption value they can create. People peg it at about, say, $45-50 billion market today, and probably grow 3x over the next 2-3 years, right? About three years, we're talking about $150 billion of value creation over the next 3-4 years. So I think this is still early days, which is what also you can see, how every day there are fintechs and startups are able to emerge, take one very meaningful and relevant problem and solve it so well that and to a larger base that they can create value significantly, and that's what all of these are examples of, right? So for Flipkart, I think we have done it once with commerce. So I think there are a few DNA traits that have brought us to where we are from an e-commerce standpoint, right? And the way we look at it, we are a consumer internet company. And financial products is something that's very closely linked to commerce as well. So our aspirations definitely are to be a destination for financial services for millennials in the country. So we will continue investing in that direction.
Really appreciate all of you joining in and sharing your insights on how you all are planning in terms of targeting the millennial base and scaling up your systems, integrating with other players in the ecosystem and financial institutions, and how you all are ready to serve this and tap this millennial opportunity. Thank you so much for joining in, and we wish you all the best. Thank you so much.